ado, I think we will get started. So our first guests are running for U.S. House of Representatives. So if Mr. LaPolice and Representative Marshall would come up to the stage.
Great.
Okay, and as Allison stated, there's a 1-minute introduction from each candidate. So we're going to begin with Representative Marshall. Would you tell us just a little bit about yourself and why you chose to run and serve in the position?
Is that on? It is. Well, good evening, Abilene. It's great to be here. Big thanks to the Chamber for putting this on. The Presidential Library, always glad to be back here in Abilene. Who in the room is excited about our new Supreme Court Justice? Boy, I am. I'm excited. It's a great, incredible week to be in Congress. So many great things happening. It's a great day for agriculture, a great week for agriculture as well. Tonight, the President's going to announce that we're going to be able to sell E15 year-round. That's a huge win for our farmers. For anyone who grows sorghum or corn, it's a huge win. And just last week, getting the NAFTA agreement buttoned back up again, getting that improved. So it's just been an incredible week for agriculture. Maybe just to talk for 10 seconds, really proud of what we've been doing for the military and for our veterans. We fully funded the military for the first time in a decade. Lots of great things happening there, and gave another 5% increase in funding for our veterans. Very proud of those. Very proud that our national security is moving forward in the right directions, and look forward to your comments and your questions tonight. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Representative Marshall. Mr. LaPolice.
Good evening. I'm Alan LaPolice, and I'm very grateful to have the Congressman here tonight. I was told that there was some vote that was supposed to happen on the floor today, but fortunately that bill to take away blankets from homeless people and veterans got tabled. I kid, but at the same time, this gets to my greater point. The tragedy in America is that politics have hardened us, they have divided us, and they have made us all too unkind. We now have politicians who are at war with each other, and that war spreads to us. We have politicians that brag about taking away food from children and the working poor. We have politicians who brag about allowing polluters to dump toxins into our waters while we still can't clean up the drinking water in Flint. We allow politicians to give tax cuts to the fabulously wealthy that makes them just that much more wealthy, and we're promised that those savings are going to trickle down to us, and while we wait, we're told to fight with each other. We're told to be unkind to each other, and that's something that I can't tolerate. Many in Washington allow this kind of this hyperpartisanship, this polarization, and they actually applaud it. Even now, just mentioning Kavanaugh, it splits the room into those who believe and those who don't believe in him. And the tragedy is that we are divided. And until we can get past that, I don't applaud this division. I want to fix it.
Okay, thank you. We're going to begin with a question on agriculture, and Mr. LaPolice, you'll be given first opportunity to answer this question with a 2-minute response. The question is, with agriculture being the largest part of the Kansas economy, what is your take on the current administration's use of tariffs in negotiating trade deals?
I've been very clear on this. The Congressman will say that he doesn't support the trades, but I believe that you follow what someone does, not what they say. I've never supported a trade war. No one wins a trade war. The tariffs are a tax. I can't believe any Republican in their right mind would support a tax. Presidents are not kings. Presidents are not supposed to negotiate trade. In the past administration, we were very upset when presidents took their pen and their phone and they did things by executive order. It should be no different now. The legislature, that's the body that we trust to govern. The legislature is supposed to establish trade agreements with all of our international partners. They're supposed to set taxes. They're supposed to set trade deals. They're supposed to pass NAFTA, TPP, TTIP, and the others. Not the executive. The executive is just supposed to be a cheerleader. They're supposed to be there to sign the legislation into law and give an annual State of the Union address. We don't have that currently because we have a Congress that has for many years abdicated their responsibility. They don't pass trade agreements. They don't pass the Farm Bill. I might say that the Farm Bill is absolutely 100% dead. It expired last week, and maybe they'll pass it in the lame duck session, and maybe they won't. I don't know that they have any real incentive to. So as far as the tariffs, I'm opposed to the tariffs. As far as the trade war, no one wins a trade war. And as far as the domestic producers, the Kansas farmers who are just asked to be patriots, you shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to sacrifice your 5th generation family farm because someone wants to settle a trade debt or a trade war with another nation. That's not our responsibility. That's not our job as patriots. So I'm opposed to them. Thank you very much.
Mr. Marshall, same question. Agriculture being the largest part of the Kansas economy, what is your take on the current administration's use of tariffs in negotiating trade deals?
Well, certainly agriculture is a big part, actually 60% of the economy in this district. I represent the largest agriculture producing district in the country. And from day one, I've said that I've been against the tariffs. I've communicated that to the president. I've encouraged him to use other methods to get that done. And that being said, I'm not sure if we would have been able to update NAFTA if the president hadn't done those tariffs. I continue to encourage him to find other ways to deal with China, and it's hard to argue with those results, though. The NAFTA agreement is much improved. There's certainly some help in there for dairy. We're going to be bringing more manufacturing jobs back to this country as well. It's going to give us access to world markets in a better way for our dried milk that we make here in Garden City as well. So I'm against tariffs, but I'm certainly in favor of opening up new trade markets. I'm excited that the European Union and Japan are both ready also to make a new deal. What I've encouraged the president, though, is to get all these other pieces done so we can gang up on China together. China steals about $500 billion of intellectual property from us every year. And additionally, they don't treat us like a good customer. And we're not a good customer, we're their best customer, but yet they give other countries more advantages than we do our own markets. There's a huge upside in China. It's going to be challenging. What I would encourage people to understand is that the president's goals and his objectives are the same as yours and mine. He wants to open up markets. He wants zero tariffs, but every time he suggests that, all the other countries go running because they're able to take advantage of us as it is now. So at least going forward, I think that trade's going to be front and center for me. We've been very involved with it so far, and we'll continue to be involved with it. So I'm against tariffs, but unfortunately, that's the way the president's decided to take us.
Thank you. Mr. LaPolice, you're allowed 1 minute of response. If not, we'll move on.
Outside of NAFTA, our largest ag trading partner is China. So I don't know why we want to pick a fight with our biggest consumer of our ag products. It's very important to know NAFTA 2.0, it was written by previous administrations. NAFTA 2.0 is hardly an update from NAFTA. There's a tiny bit of dairy that we get to export into Canada, a tiny bit, but that's completely eliminated by the offset or all the other trade losses that we suffer. There is nothing for beef producers, there's nothing for grain producers except for a tiny reclassification of wheat in NAFTA 2.0. NAFTA 2.0 didn't have to happen. NAFTA 1 was just fine. It was written by previous administrations. Now, something that's very important about these trade agreements, we have established trading partners over the course of many, many decades. Right now, in Brazil, they are establishing 80 million acres of soybeans. In Kazakhstan and other Russian-backed nations, they've got so much land that they will take our wheat markets forever. Because of this trade war, if we lose our trading partners, it's not like there's not enough mouths to feed. There are, but there's more than enough land to feed them. We lose our trade partners, we lose forever.
Thank you. Next question, we'll move to perhaps a little bit more local issues of concern to these folks. We'll begin with Representative Marshall on this question. So you'll be allowed 2 minutes to respond. The question is, how would you or how have you defended the interests of Kansas on a national level and perhaps of your district in particular?
Right. You know, I think first of all, I would start talking about the economy. Whether you think that roads, bridges, or education or our military is the most important priority, it all starts with a strong economy. So on day number 1, we started rolling back regulations. That got this economy cranked up. We did our tax cuts bill as well, and we were seeing like 5% wage growth here across the country now, even for the low wage earners. So number 1 is get the economy going. I think the number 2 concern of Kansas has always been national security. So we've been continued to improve the national security as well as the international security. Farm bill is front and center for us. It's very close to being finished up. Unfortunately, the minority senator from Minnesota is refusing to, Michigan, Ms. Stabenow is refusing to do anything more with it until the election is over with. So the Democrats are continuing their obstruction and chaos. So working very hard on the Farm bill. And then maybe lastly, I would talk a little bit about ethanol, which I mentioned already. And of course, trade we've talked about was picked by Kevin Brady, the Ways and Means Committee, to represent agriculture in the NAFTA negotiations. Was the first congressman to be able to talk directly with Ambassador Freeland from Canada about that. I've been to China, to Cuba twice, to Israel, trying to sell Kansas products. I was able to get rid of a 70% tariff on ethanol and dry distillers grain in China. So, pretty much 24/7 I'm out there promoting the situation. I think about 70,000 agriculture guest worker jobs that we have in this state, trying to figure out an immigration policy that would help protect those jobs. Certainly working towards border security as well. So gosh, off the top of my head, there's a couple dozen.
Okay, thank you. Mr. LaPolice, same question. How would you defend the interests of Kansas and of this district on a national level?
This district is ag. And it offends me when our congressman applauds this robust economy, this amazing boom economy, when the Kansas economy is suffering. And it is. The ag economy is the Kansas economy. The Kansas economy is suffering right now. We are in a slump like we haven't seen since the 80s. We are in a farm crisis. The last time we had this, it resulted in massive farm foreclosures, bankruptcies, and my friends leaving the ability to farm. So to applaud the Wall Street economy only speaks to who you serve. If you serve the Wall Street economy, then yes, the economy is robust. If you serve the Kansas economy, then you have to be upset by this trade war. And you have to be upset by the fact that we're not seeing any of the gains. There's no 5% wage increase. I don't know anybody that's got a 5% wage increase. Inflation is now above 2%, and that completely wipes out all of the tax cut incentives that middle-class workers got. So how do I defend the Kansas economy, our ag economy? Well, first off, let me say this, and let me be very clear. Farming and ranching are not partisan endeavors. These are not partisan things. Many of you are Democrats, many of you are Republicans. I don't care. Farming shouldn't care. I'm an educator by trade. I still farm, but mostly I educate. Education is not a partisan issue. Healthcare is not a partisan issue. As a doctor, you should understand that. These are not partisan issues. No one can represent a district unless they're going to be nonpartisan, especially in terms of agriculture, education, healthcare, anything that we value. We as a nation are divided, so you cannot applaud this robust economy and this new nation that we're in when we are falling apart, when we are being torn apart at the seams. I'm not faulting any one party. I'm faulting partisanship. I'm not faulting you necessarily, but you applaud what's happening, and I denounce it, because unless we can come back together as one nation under God, indivisible, Kansas, we lose. And the United States, we don't even recognize ourselves.
Thank you. Representative Marshall, you have 1 minute if you'd like to give any clarifying remarks.
Yeah, certainly the Kansas economy overall is expanding, doing great by any metric. Unemployment under 3%. There are great jobs all across the state. Certainly rural agriculture continues to struggle. But the problem is we cannot keep doing what we've been doing. Agriculture's had the short end of the stick for over 20 years. China is slowly leaching, blood-sucking the life out of agriculture, as were our other trade deals. Somebody had to stand up, and Donald Trump is the person that's chosen to quit kicking the can down the road, to stand up to all these short-term mini fixes that actually allows other countries to continue to have advantages over us. So we're going to keep rolling back regulations. We're going to try. On the House side, we already made the individual taxes permanent, the small business tax cuts permanent as well. So certainly nationwide across the state, this economy is going stronger. I've got a lot of work to do on the agriculture economy, and that's why I'm focused on a strong farm bill and good trade deals.
Okay, thank you. Our third and final question for these candidates is about the political climate in Washington. Mr. LaPolice, you will be given the first opportunity to respond to this question. The question is, given the current political climate in Washington, which we've already spoken about some tonight, how would you work for more productive conversations on the issues in our country and state?
It's everything to me. It's everything that I've been doing since I began in politics. I'm an educator and a farmer and a father. I'm very proud that my wife and my 3 daughters are here tonight. Politics isn't for me. Politics is what I'm doing to fix what I see as a torn apart nation. And when you were elected, you ran on this notion that partisanship was destroying this country, and you won the election. You won the primary, at least, by saying that you were going to reach across the aisle, down the aisle, in the aisle, you're going to be bipartisan. And then I applaud you on Valentine's Day. You gave a wonderful, touching speech about iron to iron and working together and being bipartisan. And yet you've done nothing to be bipartisan. Since you served in Congress, the divide has gotten farther, and you celebrate that divide. You claim that the Democrats are trying to ruin our nation. You claim that the Democrats sabotaged this Supreme Court nomination. You celebrate the divide. And if we don't deal with this divide, we are doomed. I don't want to be the naysayer, the doomsayer. I don't want to be downer here. But if we can't bridge this divide, then I don't know what the future of this country looks like, because we are supposed to be indivisible. Now, when I ran, and you'll say this is a weakness, and I see it as my greatest strength. When I ran against Congressman Huelskamp in 2014, this is what I preached, this is what I said. The divide is going to kill us. And I ran as a Republican, but a moderate Republican, and I nearly beat him. And that was unheard of back in 2014, to run as a moderate Republican. Didn't happen. And then I ran as an independent, because I said I have to be in the aisle if I'm going to actually do any good. And now you'll denounce me because I'm running as a Democrat. But when in fact I'm doing the only thing that I believe will solve this problem. I'm not talking the talk. I'm actually walking the walk. You see, I'm running this not for the Democratic Party. I apologize. I'm running this for the American people. So if anybody can be bipartisan, it's the person that will not give loyalty to a party, that will not swear off or swear to be partisan, but is willing to be bipartisan, or in my case, nonpartisan.
Thank you, Representative Marshall.
Yeah, maybe if I kind of shared my life, what my life is like in Washington, and just to think about, the chaos that you'll see on TV is not my life at all. Every Tuesday night, I have a dinner with about 20 men, bipartisan, senators, congressmen, Republicans, Democrats, independents. We'd like to profess that we're men of God and that our faith is important to us, and we talk about our lives and our families. There are people that have lived in the bipartisan house that I lived in my first year, and I built great friendships with those men. Most every Thursday morning, I get to participate in a bipartisan prayer group. I've reached out to every member on the House Agriculture Committee that's a Democrat, went to their office and asked Jimmy Panetta from California, well, why is agriculture important to your district? And through this whole Farm Bill process, I've drawn upon those bipartisan relationships. If you come to Washington, D.C. and spend a week with me, you're going to see the freshman Democrats, ladies hug me, and you're going to see the freshman Democrat fist bump me. I don't have great relationships with all the Democrats, but I do several of them. Colin Peterson, the minority leader of the House Ag Committee, and I are good friends. Even invited me to go hunting with him this season as well. We both share that passion. I didn't go to Washington, D.C. with Republican on my shirt sleeve. I certainly believe in conservative philosophies. I'm proud to be a Republican and part of a Republican family. But I certainly do think that the divide is getting worse, and I think there's lots of reasons, and I'm trying to solve those reasons. But it all starts with relationships. One of my best times of the day, I go to the gym and work out most every afternoon from between 3 and 5. Democrats are in the gym working out as well. We're building those types of relationships. So I'm doing it one person at a time. Very proud of my bipartisan relationships. Many times called upon by the House Ag Committee and leadership to reach out to my Democrat friends. So appreciate the comments.
Okay, thank you. Mr. LaPolice, 1 minute response if you have clarification at all.
The reality is, if you go and shadow any congressman right now, you'll find that 70% of their time is spent raising money for the next election. That's the truth. They spend over 70% of the time on the phone raising money for the next election. And they do not have to be bipartisan because it doesn't serve them in their reelection. In fact, to be partisan, to be hyper-partisan, guarantees you win your primary, and you can't get beat by somebody primarying you from the far left or the far right. That's what the new political world is. And that's what's got to change. I mean, everyone agrees. that money has corrupted the system, and everyone agrees that partisanship is corrupting the system. And so to talk this talk, it sounds great, but the partisanship only grows worse, and I hear you on record. You were the man that said poor people don't want insurance because the Bible says so. You're the person that sabotaged the ACA with the ACA, and you never offered any other meaningful plan. You're the person that put us into catastrophic debt, and if you say you're a Republican, I'm going to denounce that because we are in a boom economy with over $1 trillion deficit and no end in sight. So we have to fix it, and we're only going to fix it if we can come together as a nation and if leaders can just do their jobs.
Okay, thank you. As a close to this segment, each candidate is given 2 minutes for any final remarks, maybe issues or questions that weren't raised in the questions we provided. So if there's something you feel that you need to speak to, you'll be given 2 minutes to do that. And Mr. LaPolice, you're going to have the first opportunity to do that now.
I do want to end on an upbeat note. I have the greatest faith in you, the American people. I have the greatest faith in this nation surviving the darkest days. We've gone through terrible things. We've gone through global wars. We went through a civil war where we tore ourselves apart. We've seen dark days, and I hate to sound the alarm and say that we are currently back to dark days, but it's hard to deny it when every day on the news it's a new scandal, and every day on the news the politicians fight more viciously, and everything gets pulled so much further to the sides. Now, I'm offering you something different. I've been saying the same thing. I didn't necessarily want to run this third campaign, but I have children, and I believe in their future. I served in the Army. I fought for this country, and I fought as a nonpartisan. And I'm not going to let these crooked politicians who benefit from our divide, from our division, from our unkindness towards one another. So I'm going to fight like hell. I don't care for the political games that they play. I don't care for the fundraising that they do. I don't care for the names they call each other. All I care about is seeing that my kids grow up in a society that is better than the one that my father left for me. And I can't say it's going to be like that unless people like myself fight like hell and people like all of you support that. Now maybe out there one of you also wants to run. Maybe one of these are the people that are going to solve the problems. But I'm up here, putting everything out there, offering to solve the problems. Everything I say to you is about solutions-based. It's not about how it's going to benefit me. It's not about how it's going to benefit one party. It's about how I believe I can bring this country back together. I'm a guy who believes in both sides. I see the benefit of having some good Republican ideology with some good Democratic ideology. But I'm the idealist who wants to save this country. And if you'll help me, maybe we can steer the country towards a better, brighter future for our kids. God bless you all.
Thank you. Representative Marshall, closing remarks.
Thanks, Al. I appreciate you coming out tonight, putting yourself out there, and just have respect for your efforts. This great big ship that we call the United States of America is slowly turning back in the right direction. After 8 years of almost drowning us in regulations and destroying our military, this beautiful country is finally going back in the right direction. It's just been incredible to see it come back alive in so many wonderful ways. But I think about one of my favorite stories, one of my favorite things to do in Washington is to take people on a Capitol tour late at night. And on that tour, I typically stop in front of President Eisenhower's statue. And I kind of share about my relationship with Ike. When I was 10 years old, he passed away. My dad was part of the honor guard for the procession back here. And when I had my 10th birthday, my dad asked me what I wanted to do. I wanted to come see where Ike was buried. And it's just the thrill of my life to come back here and say I represent Ike's district here. But the story I share about Ike is that when President Eisenhower finished his presidency, the historian said, oh, he's probably like the 30th best president ever. And here we are 30, 40 years later, and most experts would say he's one of the top 5. And I would just caution people to judge a decision tonight that was made this morning, because sometimes decisions take a while to to bear their fruit. And I think of what President Eisenhower did. He started the interstate highway system. He did the first civil rights legislation. He started the Health, Education, and Welfare Department. He started NASA. But it took decades for all those decisions to really come to fruition. So, like the position I am, whatever the issue is, I try to take in all the facts, look at through all the problems through everybody's eyes, and I look for that win-win opportunity. I'm going to keep doing that. I'm so proud to represent this community and this district, and I'm looking forward to the better days ahead for this beautiful country. Thanks for coming tonight.
We would invite to the stage next. Thank you again, Mr. LaPolice and Representative Marshall. Our candidates who are with us tonight running for Lieutenant Governor, we have Mr. Wink Hartman and Mr.